The emperor has no clothes. My program today is an investigation. My name is Pastor Martin Ssempa. I'm a graduate of the great Makerere University. I want to speak to you today on the subject that I have reasons to believe that the Vice Chancellor of Makerere University, Professor Barnabas Nawangwe, should have never been appointed a Vice Chancellor. And the evidence I'm going to give to you is very rudimentary, that anyone can be able to access it. It's in public domain. What I'm going to be doing today is I'm going to share with you what it takes to be a professor according to the laws of Uganda. Then I'm going to show you Mr. Barnabas Nawangwe's resume or CV that shows that he doesn't have what it takes to be a professor. Then you are going to make the decision as to whether we should continue calling Mr. Barnabas Nawangwe a professor, or we should stop calling him a professor and call him Mr. Barnabas. I, for one, am convinced that the evidence that I've unearthed, I have enough reason to doubt that Mr. Barnabas should be called a professor, let alone a vice chancellor. Now, let me start off by showing you my evidences. I'm going to be taking you online, but the subjects that I'm going to share with you online, I have already printed them out. These include the statutory instruments of the universities and other tertiary acts. Number two, I'm going to share with you the advertisement or the call in the newspaper of what was required to be a vice chancellor of Makerere. This is from New Vision 2017. I'm also going to share with you the human resource manual of Makerere University that shows who can be a professor and consequently whether Professor Nawangwe is a professor. Finally, I'm going to share with you, simultaneously, Mr. Barnabas Nawangwe's CV that shows all his education, his achievement. This is a public accessible document, which I'm going to show you also online. And so welcome to my program today. This is Ssempa 360. And on this edition, I examine whether the man occupying the office of Vice Chancellor at the great Makerere University should be called a professor. I want, first of all, to summarize what I've shared with you in very simple terms. I'm going to share with you what actually we are looking for. So, if you follow with me, right over here, we're going to look at the National Council for Higher Education. This one says that for one to be a professor, you need 10 peer-reviewed articles and you have to have 2 books by a reputable publisher. I'll share with you what reputable publisher means. Then I'm going to share with you Makerere University Human Resource Policy that says that for one to be a professor, you require 10 papers, 2 books. Finally, I'm also going to show again the advert call of the Vice Chancellor in 2017 that says for one to be a Vice Chancellor, you need to have 10 peer-reviewed papers. So, now that that has been done, I want to introduce myself to you. Some of you say, Pastor, why is this so important? Well, I'm an old member of Convocation. I'm an OB of Makerere University who's very concerned about the goings-on of Makerere. I also have invested about $10 million in Makerere University over the last 25 years. This has been through my professional deferment of salary, both my wife and I, investing as volunteers in Makerere University. My church was recently closed by Mr. Barnabas Nawangwe, and that's what triggered me off. After 25 years, I'm like, what kind of person is this who does this? We've been hearing about student strikes where they complain that they are not being, their money for their allowances is not being given to them. We've been hearing about professors that are crying out, being suspended, fired with no meaningful understanding. We've been hearing militarization over what was once a great university. And many people have referred to Makerere as a high school, Nawangwe High School. So it triggered me to research. So if you want to know, sometimes people have to it has to get personal for you to take time to actually do the research. So I'm going to invite you to look with me online concerning what it is like. What is Makerere University? So Makerere University has had distinguished alumnus, amongst whom is Julius Nyerere. These are the late. We've had President Yoweri Museveni. He's alumnus of Makerere. President Paul Kagame. He's alumnus of Makerere. The former president of Congo, Mr. Joseph Kabila. He's alumnus of Makerere. Now, Makerere, this is from the website of edurank.org. I'm just showing with you how many people are stakeholders. The former president, Milton Apollo Obote. The former president of Kenya, Mr. Mwai Kibaki. The literally man, Mr. Mwai Ngugi wa Thiong'o. This is a Kenyan author and academic. Uganda's opposition, Bobi Wine. Robert Kyagulanyi Ssentamu, Ugandan politician and actor. A cleric, John Ssentamu. The Bishop, John Taka Mugabe Ssentamu, is now a baron, was the former Archbishop of York. Mr. Benjamin Mkapa, he was the third president of Tanzania. Yasmin Albai Brown, British journalist and author. Jaramogi Oginga Odinga, this is Kenya's politician, became prominent in the struggle for independence. You go on, Yusuf Lule, the former president, Kiza Besigye, James Kabarebe, Ruhakana Rugunda, comedian Anne Kansime, Robert Owuko, Mr. Amama Mbabazi, the former prime minister, the late speaker, Jacob Olanya, David Muhoozi, is currently serving as the minister for State for Internal Affairs. Saif Sharif Ahmed, Tanzanian politician. Rebecca Kadaga is a Ugandan lawyer and former Speaker of Parliament. Mr. Sam Kutesa, he's Ugandan politician, businessman, lawyer, and Mokisa Kitui. So you get the feeling, even the Vice President, Jessica Alupo, the former Prime Minister, Mr. Nsibambi, former Vice President, Edward Sekandi, Hamisi Chigundu, Stella Nyanzi, the feminist, Anita Mong, the Speaker of Parliament, Mugisha Muntu, the current opposition leader, Speciosa Kanziwe, Norbert Mao, he was my guild president when I was at Makerere University. Let me stop over there. This goes on, Andrew Mwenda, Go, Jennifer Musisi, Musuya, Jane Acheng, Flavia Tusime, Kahinda Otafire, Justice Julia Sebutinde, Richard Sezibela is my OB when I was at Makerere, Paul Semogere, Gilbert Bukenya, Professor Sylvia Tamale, an academic human rights, although I disagree with her. She takes a different view on the subject of homosexuality. Amelia Chambade, Otieno Kajwang, Tayali, Mohammed Hamid, GNL Zamba the musician, Maria Mutagamba, Betty Bigombe, Joy Doreen Bira, a journalist, and many others. Let me stop over there and say, okay, this is what Makerere is about. But the subject we're dealing with is not new. Recently, the Inspector General of Government, Betty Kamya, said that some civil servants have fake academic qualifications. What does that mean? She said at a recent, she says that the workers have certificates and were not the best suited candidates who turned up for the job. It's a very serious crisis. we brought it to the attention of the president, and I understand that the cabinet is about to discuss it. So it is not new that we have. She said that we have fake engineers who use poor quality materials after getting kickbacks. She said to a large extent, we have an economy that is run at best by mediocre and at worst people who are not qualified. In this case, contractors who do show the work. They use unqualified material. So on this issue, it's not new that we have some people who could be faking their papers. Actually, it's exactly 1 year now since Claudine Gay resigned as Harvard University professor. Some of you remember her. She was a bright light, the first African American to become the president of Harvard University. That's her. And she resigned exactly 1 year ago. It was on my birthday, the 3rd of January, 2024, which is just 1 day before today. So, and what was it? It had to do with academic problems, plagiarism, and criticism about anti-Semitism. But it was really plagiarism. Now, let's go down and show with you. So I am going now to show you Mr. Barnabas Nawangwe's resume. And I'm going to compare that with the requirements of the University National Council for Higher Education, as well as the CV, as the call for a vice chancellor. I'm going to show you that Mr. Barnabas Nawangwe mostly has what are called pamphlets, but not published papers. And number two, Mr. Barnabas Nawangwe has conference presentations or conference papers, which are categorized as a work in progress, but they are not papers. Now this, what I'm sharing with you, is publicly online. It's available. I know there is a children's play, a children's book called The Emperor Has No Clothes by a Dutch writer, Hans Christian Andersen, where this vain emperor was disproved. He was convinced that he had clothes, but he did not have any clothes. And a simple young person helped him and said, look, you're naked. I want to share you with me. Join me as I go online now to look up the website and bring up Barnabas Nawangwe's CV. If I'm right, the implications of this is such that we have had in the position of a professor someone who should not be called a professor. If I'm right, we have had someone in leadership of Makerere University, someone who should not be as a vice chancellor. And this is troubling because when you look at the current state of affairs of Makerere, this is not the great Makerere. Students are hungry. If you visit the classes, disorganized, there's an atmosphere of fear in the university. This is not the great Makerere that I went to. So I want to make sure that I bring you back. I want you to go over it, and I want to move forward meticulously. Bear with me. And I want to go through the entire, because this is the document Mr. Barnabas submitted when he was applying for the job of a vice chancellor. This is when you are at your very best. So let's look at those. And in fact, we need to know, did he have those when he became the professor in 2013, and also when he became the vice chancellor in 2023? Come with me. Let me finish with you, because at the end, it's going to be world-shaking to discover that the person we've been calling professor was no professor at all, and the emperor has no clothes. Come, let us continue to the next 15th going upwards. So this is Mr. Barnabas Nawangwe's CV. I think you can see it over here. I'm going to try to make it bigger again. We're on page 56. This is what he has. as I've shared with you before. And then this is his profile. This is when he studies at the Kiev University. And then when you go forward, he says he's got his master's academic career. So this is how he became the professor. He says he became a professor in 2013. So in 2013, he should have had those 2 books by reputable printer or publishing house and 10 papers. So let's go down to page 56 and continue looking at his publications. This is down to page 56. Okay, here we are, page 56. So as I said before, that's where we've started, a philosophy and a vision of African education. This, again, you can see, let me bring it up, red, make it small. It's a paper, okay, presented at the Conference of Architecture, Lagos, Nigeria, okay? You go back, number 2, Urban Design and Housing, Course Manual of Physical Planning. Okay, let's say course manual, but who is the publisher, okay? If it's by a publishing house, it would have a publisher over here. Then you move number 3, Land Tenure System and Development, a paper presented. This is a paper presented and published in the Proceedings of International Housing Science. This, again, is a conference, a congress in this. It's not a journal. If it was a journal, it would be, say, Journal A Journal B, and there are many recognized journals. No, this is a conference. Then we talk about Learning from Vernacular. Again, it's a paper presented at a conference. Okay, do you begin to get the idea? Number 5, Environmental Response in Vernacular. Again, a paper presented at the Proceedings of the International Conference. This, again, is a conference on building envelope systems and technology, Singapore. You move forward. Number 6, again, it's a paper presented at a conference. Okay. Number 7, Vernacular Architecture. Okay, this is a publication on research in vernacular. It's published by the Makerere Department of Architecture. But who is the publisher? Okay, I don't see a publishing house. Okay, now we go to 8. This could look like the books. But if these are books, then who is the publisher of all of them? Okay, you ask, who is the publishing house? Because if you say, okay, Traditional Ganda Homestead, published by, these are pamphlets like Tamale Mirun's pamphlets, Abanyampi or whatever, okay? So that's it. Now 17, you come again, Lessons for Environmental Design. Again, it's a paper presented at Commonwealth Association of Architects. Okay, you move on, and this is all conference. You move on, this is all conference. You move on, this is all paper presented, Greener's Vernacular, in a conference. Number 21, Sustainability, a paper at a conference. Number 22, Role of African History, paper presented at a conference. Articles on Vernacular, paper in encyclopedia. Okay, you have, this is an entrance in an encyclopedia. Was it peer-reviewed? I'm not sure. Okay, but this is an entrance in an encyclopedia. Is it a reputable journal? No, because what's required is a journal. 24, Typology of School Buildings and Rational, a research report. Research report is not a paper. 25, Study of Land Tenure System Issues in Kampala and their effort. It's a report of a study by Nawangwe. 26, Environmental Lessons in Vernacular Houses of Uganda, a paper presented at the conference. Number 27, Housing and Environment. It's a paper presented at a conference. Number 28, Practice versus Theory, Dilemma of Contemporary Housing Research Methodologies, a paper presented at a conference in Stockholm, September 23. Number 29, Modernism as a Tool for Development, an article published by Nawangwe Barnabas, and this in a journal Open House International. Okay, we have the first one. That's number 29. That's the first entrance from a journal. Number 1. Okay, that's 1. Now, go to 30. Agricultural Practices in Urban Settings, District of Kampala. A paper presented at a conference, Alexandria. Number 31. Role of Urban Agriculture in Housing, Kampala Informers. A paper presented in Housing Science, Melbourne. Not a journal. 32. Special Transformation of Low-Income Housing in Kampala. A paper presented at a conference. 33. Expression versus a paper present. Look, I don't even have to go. I will pull it up and show to you. Now, Modernism in African Architecture, a chapter in the book on Global Grounds, edited by Julia Nevers, New York. Okay, let's say that there's a chapter there. Okay, let's say that could constitute an entrance. Let's say that's 2. Number 35, Lessons from Vernacular Architecture for Energy Conservation in Building, a paper presented in Bangkok. Look, he didn't even put the conference. This is a conference paper, Mr. Barnabas, okay? That's a conference in Bangkok, August. 36, you notice how he's avoiding to say it's a conference? Number 36, Evolution of the Chibuga, a paper presented at the conference on Modern African Architecture, Pretoria, 2009. Number 37, Architectural Transformation of Makerere University Neighborhood, Proceedings at a Conference, 2011. Number 38, Women Participation in Construction Industry, Proceedings of a Conference, January 2011. 39, Mitigating Threats of Local Knowledge Embedded in Earth Architecture, a Case of Preserving African Architecture, in Reina, the 10th International Conference, okay, on the study and conservation of earthen architectural heritage. Symposium Proceedings, first edition, Los Angeles Getty publication. Okay, so we have over here a Getty publication with an ISBN, okay? For the first time, we see an ISBN, okay? There it is, first time, first reference, okay? This is a paper, okay? There we go. So this is, what is that? He says it's a first edition. This is Symposium Proceedings, by the way. These are Symposium Proceedings. This is not a book that you can say is published by Mr. Barnabas Nawangwe, okay? So no. We will not give that to him as a what? That's not a paper. That's not a journal. Is that a journal? No. That's not. Those are conference proceedings. Those are not called papers. Remember that. That's what it said over here. Working papers, conference proceedings shall not be considered journal articles as they are still a work in progress. Okay, so let's continue over there. When we touch up with back to his CV. Okay, number 40. I think we're over here, number 40. Challenges and Opportunities for an Academia-Led Cluster Program, a paper presented at the conference in 2011, New Zealand. That's a paper. 41, Convergence of Tradition, Modernity and Architecture, a paper presented at a conference. 42, Between Global and Regional Visions, Way Forward for East African Cities, Birabi Bawangwe, a paper presented at a regional architectural conference, okay? Not a journal, at a conference. There it is, a regional conference. Number 43, Opportunities and Challenges of Cluster-Based Competitive in a Developing, a paper presented at a conference in Abuja. Number 44, The Role of Academia in Advancing Renewable Energy in Uganda, paper presented Africa-EU Energy Partnership Conference. So, I want to share with you that when you look back at all Mr. Barnabas Nawangwe's papers, his publications, they're over here. We do not see a journal or a published book except one. That's it. There it is. This is it. It says 29, Modernism as a Tool for Development, an article produced by Barnabas Nawangwe and Vespro Dick Urban in the Urban Open House Journal, volume this number 203. Apart from that, I do not see any paper in a book or in a journal that is recognized. It's not there. It's just not there. Neither do we see the two books that should have been there. So I want to summarize what I've shared with you. I've summarized with you. Maybe we can end up with, I wrote to the Uganda library. Okay, I wrote to the Uganda library as I was preparing this. And I asked them through my lawyer, and I said, do you have any information on Mr. Barnabas's paper? And this is what they said. It says the National Library of Uganda is mandated to issue ISBN and collect Lego deposit. But on checking on our databases, the National Library of Uganda has never issued an ISBN nor received legal deposits from Mr. Barnabas Nawangwe unless the ISBN were issued to the publishing house that published his books. Okay, this is from Uganda. Okay, this is Uganda Library. We don't have it. I want to now look at the Makerere University Library. Because if you publish, the word publish is to put into public domain. The issue of academia is very simple. If someone says you have never written, all you have to do is to get your book and say, my book is right here. So help me with my book. If you say Pastor Ssempa has never written a book, all I have to do is to go to my library and say, hey, this is my book. And I actually have an ISBN. So if we say that Mr. Nawangwe does not have the papers, it's simply up to him to say that, hey, I actually have the papers, they're right here. But I went forward and I want to take you to the Makerere University Library, which also functions as a national depository. It's also the library of Mr. Barnabas Nawangwe, where he is the Vice Chancellor. You would assume that Mr. Barnabas Nawangwe's papers are available. So I'm going to make a comparison between Mr. Barnabas and maybe another professor at Makerere. Let's say Sylvia Tamale, okay? So I'm going to type in a search on the archives of Makerere University catalog to see what is available. Come with me as we go into the university website. Okay, so the library, Makerere University Library is www.makula.mak.ac.ug. What is that? Double scores 880. So we're going to go into the library. Here it is. We've entered into Makerere University Library catalog. So what I'm going to do is I am going to type in Mr. Barnabas Nawangwe to see what works are available in the university. So Barnabas Nawangwe. You would expect at least 2 books and at least 10 journal entries. Okay, so this is what we have come up with. Okay, we've come up with Mr. Barnabas Nawangwe. You only get 4 hits when you go into the library. The first one is a list of professors who have been leading Makerere University up to now. So that in itself is not a paper, okay? It says he was preceded by Mr. John Dumba Sentamu, okay? You can see that. And then before that was Lubobi, and then Nawangwe up to date. So that's a dead end. Next, Makerere University Status Report, Department of Architecture. That's a status report. It's not a paper, okay? Then you come up with Research Report on Land Tenure and Administrative Issues in Kampala City and their effects on urban development. Barnabas Nawangwe, August Nwagaba. Now, this is also a report, a such report, okay? A such report. It's not a paper. It's not a paper, okay? So if it's not a paper, then that report is not in a journal. Then next is reappointment of Barnabas Nawangwe as a vice chancellor. These are the ones. Let's say I've made a mistake. Let's have 20 entries. Still, you come up with only four entrances of Mr. Barnabas Nawangwe. You don't get anything. You don't. That's all. Okay? So let's type in and find out, okay, Sylvia Tamale. Okay? Let's say Professor Sylvia Tamale and see what we come up with. Sylvia Tamale. Are there any books that come up with Sylvia Tamale, with a publishing book? Okay, here we are. Now, I don't agree with Tamale, but right over here, Understanding Sexuality in Uganda, Challenges and Strategies. Okay, call number, this Makerere University Faculty of Law. Okay, we don't have a publishing house, okay? But it's over there. It's from the Faculty of Law. One copy is available. Homosexuality, a Perspective from Uganda. Call number, publisher, Sexual Minorities Uganda, the year 2007. At least we have a publisher there. Next, Decolonization and Afrofeminism. Publisher, Daraj Press. Okay, this is important. You have a Daraja Press, a reputable publishing house. And then African Sexualities, a reader. This is Pambazuka Press, African Sexualities. And then finally, we have a couple more. We have Towards Feminist Pan-Africanism, MISA 305, African Feminism, How Should We Change? Another one, Flow, Gender, Sexuality Center, When Hands Begin to Grow. I remember this book of ours, Gender and Parliamentary Politics. Now, over here you can see who is the publisher. You have Fountain Publishers, 1999. Okay, so you have over here with Professor Tamale, publication, Human Rights NGOs in East Africa, publisher, University of Pennsylvania Press, the year 2009. Now, I think I've made the point. I've made the point that when you look at Mr. Barnabas Nawangwe, okay, and then you compare him to Professor Sylvia Tamale, okay, you see you have 4 entrances, you have no book, you have no journals, and then you compare that with Sylvia Tamale, you see many publications with genuine publishing houses. So what does that mean? The implications of this information is vast. If I am right, and the evidence that I've provided for you is sufficient, it means that there was something wrong in the process that enabled Mr. Barnabas Nawangwe to become with the title of a professor. Remember, he's telling us that he's the only professor, full professor of architecture in Africa. That's what he says in his CV. But the implications is that we have in leadership of the great university someone who is an academic dwarf. Mr. Nawangwe is not supposed to be called a professor. And until I have evidence that shows that Mr. Barnabas Nawangwe has the 10 requisite journal papers which are peer-reviewed and 2 books dated before 2013, I am going to stop calling Mr. Barnabas Nawangwe a professor, and I'm inviting everybody who cares about merit, everyone who cares about Makerere, everyone who cares about the greatness of an academic institution to immediately stop calling Mr. Barnabas by the title professor we should call him Mr. Barnabas, not Professor, until he proves to us that he actually has what it takes to be called a professor. The second thing we must do is Nawangwe must go. Okay. Now, I know that it starts with, many of you have heard there's a slang that says Nawangwe must go from students. But actually, it's much more. It's the cry of intellectuals who want to restore credibility to our great institutions. And I have with me, of course, Nawangwe must go. This is my special hoodie that I printed. Okay. The goal is Nawangwe must go, but it's not only for Nawangwe to go. It's to make Makerere great again. Let's have that over here. Now, the goal is to make Makerere University great again. We must get rid of these academic frauds. It's bull fattening. We have a story in Western Uganda of men who want to sell old cows. They feed it with hot pepper. The cow then begins to be up with the tail up as if it is a young bull. But once you take it home and the hot pepper has ended, the cow goes back to its normal place. I don't like this bull fattening. Put it up over there. Put it up on my shelf so that it can be seen. Now, the second thing is we need a report from the University Council. Okay, we need a report from the University Council led by my good friend, Mrs. Lorna Magara, the University Council Secretary. This is my very good friend, a former guild president, and all the members that were involved. What was the process like in making Mr. Barnabas a vice chancellor? But even more importantly, who made Mr. Barnabas a professor? We need a report on that. Okay, this is very important, because if Mr. Barnabas, at his most important time, when he wants to become the vice chancellor, this is what he gave in his CV. Okay, what did he give in his? What did people depend on? Who made him a professor? Who made Barnabas Nawangwe a professor? What did they depend on? There's something wrong with our university. If you can make someone who doesn't have the papers, the 10 peer-reviewed publications and 2 books by a recognized publishing house, what's wrong with our university? This is not the great Makerere. So, look, heads needs to roll. And then we need a reform of the entire place. Because now that Mr. Barnabas is in, not on merit, but on technical know-how, you have an entire university filled by acting managers, acting leaders, acting administrators who are there on the mercy and the friendship of Mr. Barnabas Nawangwe. No wonder we have the current state of Makerere University the way it is. So we need a thorough audit. And I'm taking this to the public court. Okay, I'm taking this to the public court. I want especially the members, the former members of Makerere University, need to be asking some tough questions. How did this man end up being a vice chancellor or even a professor? We don't have his papers. I'm told he doesn't even have a bachelor's degree. Okay. Maybe it's in the Soviet Union, but Makerere requires that you must have a bachelor's degree. I want to bring this. What about the decisions that he has made since he took office? There are students who have been suspended for no reason at all. Many students suspended. 1, 2, 3, you are suspended. Churches closed. Professors suspended. These decisions, because he is in the position of a professor and a vice chancellor illegitimately, It needs therefore to be asked, are these decisions legal or not legal? And I think that, to me, we must start shunning Mr. Barnabas Nawangwe because he's an academic fraud. He doesn't have the papers required to be called a professor. And until he shows those to me, when Mr. Barnabas shows up in my presence, I'll just get up and go. Okay, maybe we can preach the gospel. Maybe we can talk about other things. How is Ukraine? But as far as him being Professor Nawangwe, no, this has come to an end until we have the evidence. And so as we look at making Makerere great again, the first place we are going to start is by asking some tough questions. Mr. Nawangwe, if you want to be part of the academia, if you want to be part of the great Makerere, I realize you never went to Makerere University. You never experienced the greatness of Makerere. You never enjoyed the debates between Professor Mamdani and Professor Nsibambi. Okay? You never experienced the joy of that academia that shaped us, that made us to be what we are. International leaders. And reducing the university to the current state of a high school. People walking in fear, intimidation. No wonder every time I say, way, Nawangwe must go. It's liberating. It's liberating. It's good to feel that we can actually have autonomy. We can be able to critique ideas. We can question authority. This is what I was trained to be. Which is why I asked Barack Obama over 10 years or 15 years, why are you bringing LGBTQ to us? This is the confidence that was given to me by my professors. My professors were trained also at the University of Dar es Salaam. The implications of this is information has been gotten. I want this to be in the public domain. I want you to help me pass this document, this video and information to everybody until everybody knows. I want the parents of young people to know. You make a decision. Do I take my child to a university whose vice chancellor is a professor but whose papers are questionable? When you are an employer and you are employing someone for Makerere, will you employ someone whose leadership and whose academic papers are questionable? When you're a donor to the university and you want a partner and someone says to you, I am the first, this is what Nawangwe says. He says he's the first African professor, okay? The first African professor of architecture in Africa. Is that true? He says, this is what he says in his profile. I'm a full professor of architecture and currently the only full professor of architecture in Africa. Huh? This is what he says in his CV. Page number 4. The only full. No, I don't think you are the full. I have reasons to believe, Mr. Nawangwe, you are not a full professor. Obulam, uli professor wa bichupuli. No, you are not a full professor. You are not. It's not. Look, I was trained in the great Makerere. That's why we sing Makerere, Makerere. We build for the future the great Makerere. Great, great and mighty, the walls all around me. Great, great and mighty, the walls besides thee. Makerere, Makerere, we build for the future the great Makerere. Listen, this is not the great Makerere, but we need to make Makerere great again. I want to ask you, join me also in doing this research. Stakeholders who are concerned, it's time to ask hard questions. Okay? The system is right now fully Nawangweized. Okay, we're dealing with Nawangwe everywhere. Nawangwe in the halls, Nawangwe in the Senate, Nawangwe in academia, Nawangwe in the administration. But as a graduate of Makerere, educated in political science. By the way, I didn't introduce myself to you. I'm educated at Makerere, the class of 1988, 89 to 1991. I did my bachelor's of social science in political science, political sociology, and sociology. And I emerged with an upper second degree. It was the best time of my life. The best time. My guild president was the Minister of Justice, the Honorable Mao Nobat, of whom I was a campaign manager when we were in Namilyango High School. So it is important for me that we restore the greatness of Makerere. We restore the greatness of Makerere. I'm going to provide the links to all the documents I've referred to underneath. I'm also going to provide my phone number if you want to support the effort to make Makerere great again. Perhaps make a financial contribution to this effort, because we must labor and work hard to make sure that we expose academic incompetences, inadequacies, and frauds. And now with the use of our internet, it's quicker for us to do that. Away, way. Away, way. Away, way. Makerere zo. Nawangwe must go. Nawangwe must go. Winning go. Micho zo. Afrostono. Lumbokso. Nkrumah o. Pastor zo. Pastor Ssempa zo. Nawangwe repenting o. Nawangwe going back to school o. Hello.